There was a time when people were sure that Mashiach is going to come in miraculous ways. The whole event will be miraculous. Every detail about it will be miraculous. Not the least of which, how will everybody suddenly become moral? Well, it'll be a miracle. A miracle will happen, and all the bad guys will die, all the good guys will remain. How will everybody know the Mashiach came? It'll be a miracle. How are we all going to go back to Israel? It'll be a miracle. How will we all fit? There will be room for everybody in Israel, particularly after the resurrection of the dead, when people from 4,000 years are going to get to... All right, this is getting totally otherworldly. And here's the problem with that. If we understand the purpose and the reason for this long drawn-out exile, the exile of the Jewish people, but the exile of the Jewish people simply means the world is not normal. Nobody in the world is normal. No one is where they belong. The whole world goes into exile when the Jews are in exile. What is the purpose of all this? Wars, uprooting civilizations. What is the... In fact, what is the purpose of the enslavement in Egypt, the coming out of Egypt, the event at Sinai, the revelation, the Ten Commandments? What is the point of all this? The point of all of this is to bring godliness, morality, and goodness to the world that needs it, which means a world that is not moral, it is not kind, and it is not godly. So if we're to bring godliness to this ungodly world, miracles are not very helpful. They can get us over a difficult period or a difficult experience, but miracles don't make this world better. Miracles are otherworldly. A miracle is a supernatural event. If you need a supernatural event, it's because nature is not doing what it should. So there will be a time, and there has been a time, when nature was not doing what it should. The world was not, and still is not, what it needs to be. But because of our efforts, through our devotion, because of our service of God, we bring heaven down to earth, we bring God down to earth. The earth becomes a heavenly place, a more godly place than heaven ever was or could be. And then Mashiach finishes the process, and we have a world that has become repaired. Who repairs the world? We do. With miracles? No, with godliness. So the whole plan and the whole purpose is that nature becomes good, people become good naturally. And then we're told Mashiach is going to come and everything is going to change and it'll all be unnatural, which means we will not succeed in making nature good. We will instead exchange nature and replace it with supernatural. That's not good news. The coming of Mashiach has to be absolutely natural. Rambam says you should not even entertain the thought that Mashiach performs miracles. And now we know why. If, when he comes, nature is still not good, and the only way to get goodness is to cancel nature and go beyond nature, then our whole history has been in vain. God forbid. Can't be. On the other hand, the same Rambam also says that when Mashiach comes, he will force all Jews to keep the mitzvahs that are being neglected, and that we should force all the nations of the world to live by the 7 Noahide laws. And it uses the word force. So we've got a problem. After all of our efforts, all the self-sacrifice, all the devotion, the blood and the tears, Mashiach will finally come. And what is he going to do? Force us to be good? The Rebbe explained it, because it can't mean literally. It can't mean force against our will. Because if we still don't want, then we're not ready for Mashiach. Here's how the Rebbe explains it. A human being has freedom of choice. If I want to take away your freedom of choice, what can I do? How do I take away your freedom of choice? Well, the best, the simplest, direct approach is put a gun to your head and say, do what I'm telling you to do, bow to the idol, or I'll shoot you. Convincing? Pretty convincing. But when you think about it, you haven't forced me to do anything. You can't. If a person says, do this or I'll kill you, you're giving me a choice. And I'm going to make a choice. And if I don't want to do what you're telling me to do, I won't do it. You're going to shoot me? Go ahead. You shoot me, you don't get what you want. I win. See, you can't make me do it. In other words, the threat of pain, the threat of death, cannot take away my freedom of choice. It can make me lean towards one way or the other, but in the end, I decide. If you don't obey the laws of the land, we're going to throw you out of the land. I've taken away your freedom of choice? Not at all. I'm not going to do it. Throw me out. So what does it mean when Rambam says that Moshiach is going to force us? You can't force. In some sense, if you're threatened with pain or death, and you therefore violate a commandment, you are not guilty of a violation, because we say that you were coerced. So, of course, on a certain level, it does infringe on your freedom of choice, but not in the ultimate sense. Ultimately, you're making a choice. So when we read in the Shema, you should love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your might. All your heart means wholeheartedly, not dual loyalties. All your loyalty is to God and nowhere else. We have no king but you. Ein lanu melech ela ata. That's wholehearted. That's with all your heart. And what is with all your soul? With all your soul means even if it cost you your life. So you serve God wholeheartedly, no other God, no other agenda, and you do it even at the cost of your life. Well, beyond that, in addition to that, you should also serve God with all your might. Well, what in the world does that mean? I already gave up my life. What more do you want? And it's not like I regret I have but one life to give for my country. Giving 2 lives is the same as giving 1 life. You just do it twice. So what does it mean with all your might? What more devotion can there be than giving up your life? Giving up your life is a decision. You could have chosen to bow to the idol or convert to another religion and stay alive. If you give up your life, there's a certain choice, a certain decision process. It could have gone the other way. You could have made the opposite decision. With all your might means you had no choice. You can't. You cannot do something that God does not approve of. And there's no choice involved. So there could be no other outcome. That's called forced. So what can force a person in the truest sense of the word? Only one thing. If the truth is so obvious that all the rest of creation, everything in creation, is all insignificant, totally unnecessary because it didn't exist, what would be so terrible if it continued to not exist? So all my needs, as we've spoken many times, they're nonsense. They're not necessary. It's nothing. On the other hand, God's purpose, God's intention, God's need, God's will, that's everything. When God's will becomes so obvious and the emptiness of the physical attractions and pleasures becomes so obvious that everyone can see it without studying, without being spiritual, without being holy, without being idealistic even. Just 20/20 vision. Anyone who can see clearly will see that this is the truth, the only truth, and the whole truth. Then you really have no free choice. Then how can you do anything else? That is more compelling than a gun to the head. So what does it mean Mashiach is going to force us, Jews and non-Jews, to serve God properly? Of course he's going to force us. He's going to make it so obvious and so clear and so logically compelling that we would have no choice. That's Mashiach. Which means that when Mashiach comes, we will no longer have to be scholars to appreciate godliness. We won't have to be religious. We won't have to make a leap of faith. We won't have to change our personality and our characteristics and become holy and pious and serious. Whatever we are, wherever we are, however we are, it's going to be so clear what we need to do next that there will be no choice. That's called forced. Forced by conviction, forced by realization of truth, not by a threat. So when Mashiach comes, we will all perform the mitzvahs that we are asked to perform, and we will do it because how could you not? How could you not? If God spoke to you personally and said, I really need you to do this, how could you not? Well, I haven't studied enough. You don't need to study. I'm God and I'm talking to you. Well, I'm not the religious type. I don't care whether you're religious. Just give charity. I don't care if you're religious. Honor your parents. I don't care if you're religious. Put on tefillin. How could you not? That's what's going to happen when Moshiach comes. Until then, we do have to be a little idealistic. We do have to try a little bit to get beyond our lazy natures. And we do have to study, discuss, think about it, and bring ourselves to the realization. Once Mashiach comes, the realization will be involuntary, which will be nice, but it's not the best. The best is when on our own initiative, human initiative, within the laws of nature, come to the recognition through thoughtfulness, through maturity, through an innate wisdom. God is real. Creation is just a tool. So, how can you not do what you were created for?